Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. Now in this episode, we're going to be playing my Cleric, who's a high elf, who's level 8, and we're over in Crushbone right now at the trainer camp. Now, I had a question on one of my videos about whether I am with friends most of the time, or if these are just regular people that I managed to group together. Now, for the most part, I tend to favor being in groups with people I know, just because, you know, that's great to be around friends. But I do also like to group with just normal, regular people that I don't know, because that's a great way to meet new people that will later become friends. But for the most part, in these videos that I've been doing lately, they've just been pickup groups, or pugs for short. So if you're looking to, you know, start a new character or come back from the game, like Kevin, who posted down on one of my videos asking the question, and just came back from an 8-year break, so I'd like to give a shout out to him and welcome him back to the game, and hopefully, you know, he's finding the game as enjoyable as I am, because this is just a great experience that I've had so far with the people that I've met. Just an overwhelming majority of the people are just so giving and so kind, that I've had strangers run up to me and just give me money, give me items for no reason, just because they see that you're a new character and they know that you're going to need it. Because when some guy gave me 50 platinum, I was like, whoa, that's going to last me for a long time. Little did I know that when I got to like level 8, I ended up spending almost all of that platinum just on my new level spells. I forgot just how expensive those spells cost. I mean, it's crazy, and I wasn't even able to get all of the ones for the next level, so I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford that. So hopefully we'll find some moneymaker way of camping a spot or doing something that will allow us to really take advantage of you know, something to make some money off of it, because the amount of money you have to spend on your spells just gets more and more increasingly harder to accomplish, especially at these low levels where you can kind of go through levels pretty quickly, whereas later on, like when you hit like level 50 and you're in that hell level, you're just pretty much stuck for a long time. And so that gives you plenty of opportunities to go out and camp, name guys, get some loot, maybe sell it and stuff like that, whereas at these low levels you really don't have that opportunity. You really don't have that time, or really those mobs. I mean, anything that you can hunt at this level, not going to go for a lot of platinum. Maybe a little bit, but not a whole lot. Really, the only way I could see affording it is to come in here and get a whole bunch of Kazakh, or not Kazakh, I don't know why I keep saying that, Crushbone pelts, and then sell those for 2 to 3 platinum a pop. Sometimes they sell for more, depending on who's on and how much they really want them, and how often, or how much the supply is, you know, that people are willing to sell to them. There's days you'll log on here and every camp, I kid you not, will be completely camped, and they even have a waiting list for that Pacific camp, you know, that people will put their names on and be like, hey, give me a tell when a spot opens up. That's how camped it is. That takes me back to the old days, and like Guck and Seb and stuff like that, where it was so hard to find a group some days, because when people got into these really good spots, they never left. Like, they would stay on for 6, 7, 8 hours in a stretch, so that they could get that named creature to spawn in enough quantity that they would all get whatever it is that he dropped. You guys can re-grab the Necro if you like. I think his level difference is too wide, not getting any experience still. What level is he? That sucks, we're about to lose somebody here. I guess the level difference is too high. I'll look around for another group. Good luck. That level thing is killing us tonight. We got a couple people in here. One was too low at level 5. I think it's the pets. Yeah, I didn't think it was the Necro, because he was 10. Yeah, so we're still trying to figure it out. I think somebody said it's 1 1.5 times your level plus 1. Since ours is level 12. Yeah, that's probably a little too high. But he's level 6, so I guess 6 level difference is just too much. But 4 of us should do fine. We don't really need a whole group of 6. I was just doing that in case somebody left. We'd have enough of a backup to give us a little bit of lee room. Is that someone's pocket healer? Oh, the other guy who's with us. No, he's not mine. Now, I know people say if your pet does more than 50% damage, you won't get as much experience. It will actually lower the amount that you'll get. And that's kind of the way that they came to limit necros and mages from really just camping a spot where a name spawns and then going to sleep. And basically every time it spawns, your pet takes it on, kills it, and you can be gone for 24, 48 hours, 68, you know, whatever you want amount of time. Come back and you had gained, you know, 3, 4, 5 levels. You know, granted in this game it takes you a lot longer to gain a level, but if you're not even there, if you're gone for 3 days, you come back, your guy's been killing, you know, maybe every 5 minutes a spawn, still, over the course of 3 days, that's a lot of kills. And they put that in the rules as that's illegal for you to do. If they catch you doing that, they'll ban you from the game. So, hold on a second, I should be doing a lot more damage than pet. Yeah, there we go. I was getting experience now the whole time. Okay, so we're doing fine now. So don't do that. If you get caught, you're out completely. You can't come back in. You lose your characters. But it is something that happens. You can find a secluded spot in a zone that really nobody ever gets to. Yeah, I'll hit my way harder after level cap comes off. So I guess there's some sort of cap at level 10. But yeah, it is one of those things that you have to be aware of if you're in a group and you don't have a lot of DPS and you happen to be using your Necro or your Mage as your main tank and they are out damaging you guys, maybe because you have, you know, I don't know, 3 healers or something like that, and you're just healing the tank or the pet, you might run into that issue, but just throw in a damage spell every once in a while and you should be fine. I mean, if you're not doing 50% of the damage, you're pretty much just, you know, resting on your laurels. I mean, that's not hard to do, really. So, going over to Kearns. Monks, they are really, really good. I have to admit that I've always loved monks as far as their pooling capabilities. They're really good at soloing too, if they know, if the person who's playing them knows how to do it. If you've ever played a monk, any of you guys who are watching, you know, let me know. Let me know what you thought of the class. Was it as good as advertised? Was it even better? Did you, when you came back to the game, if you came back to the game, did you decide to make the same class, or did you go with something different? As I mentioned before, Kevin said that he just came back from an 8... sorry about that, guys. An 8-year break. So I'm wondering if he played the same class when he came back, or if he went with something different. I know I got used to playing Cleric, but that wasn't the first class I made when I got back. I actually made a Necro, because that's a class I had never tried before, so I wanted to try something different. When you have all that time invested into another character, it can be sometimes very hard. Let's roll my friend to join and do a chamois with me. It can be very hard to say, okay, now I'm going to start another character. I mean, you put all that time into leveling that guy. You put all that time into getting really good loot for that guy. And now basically you're turning your back and saying, okay, I'm going to start somebody else. That's a big commitment, and a lot of people just didn't do it. I know I didn't do it for the longest of time. I had my Shadow Knight, which is my very first character, and I would say for about 70% of the time I played Everquest 1, that was the character that I had, and the only character I had. It wasn't until towards the end that I got so tired of not being able to find groups at the end game, because you know, Shadow Knights are great, but they're not the ones that people literally go out and beg for. It's the healers, the people who can res, that people definitely want. They also want enchanters. I've talked about this in other videos, what classes are really sought after, but clerics were definitely one of them, high on the list. So I decided to pick that class, and I found out that I loved it. I loved playing a cleric so much that for the most part I actually ended up just playing the cleric almost 24/7. I would occasionally go back to the Shadow Knight, because out of both characters I would have to say the Shadow Knight is more fun, because you're the Fooler. You're going to have a lot more fun experiences, crazy experiences. You're going to get into trouble. You're going to die in some of the weirdest spots, which will make for some of the craziest corpse retrievals that you ever have. Whereas a cleric, I mean, come on, really the most exciting thing that happens to you is when the Fooler pulls too many, and you have to decide, do I take the bullet and heal him and save his life and take the aggro and die, probably, or do I sit back and let him die? It's a no-brainer in my case. You take the hit, you know, you heal your tank. If that means you die, then that means you die, but if you're not going to heal the tank, then what are you playing the healer for? So, but yeah, you can get so many more crazy experiences with a pooler of any class. I don't care if you're a monk, a Shadow Knight, you know, even Necros can pull on a pinch because they got the fatigue death. I mean, it's just crazy how much you get into. So yeah, occasionally I would go back and play the tank. It also lets you explore the zone. I mean, this is pretty much it. This is my field of view for my cleric, and this is pretty much all he will ever see sitting at this camp. Never really will move from this spot unless we're going to another camp. So as the Shadow Knight, you actually get to go, or not a Shadow Knight, just the Pooler in general, you'll get to go into rooms that, you know, are very cool looking, but there's nothing in them. I mean, it's just mobs that are inside. There's no name, there's no quest item, there's nothing of interest in that room. So there's really no reason for anybody to ever see the inside of that room. And for the most part, a lot of rooms you can open up like the door and you can kind of peek around and see a little bit, but you don't get the full like majesty of these rooms unless you can go inside and see just how well the programmers and the artist, how much time they put into some of these beautiful sceneries on the wall and the illusions of fire or magic or orbs, and it's in a room that I would say probably 98% of the people playing the game will almost never get to see, simply because there's nothing in there other than the mobs. And so as the pooler, you'll get to go in there on a regular basis, pull these guys out, take them back to your group. You'll also learn a whole lot more about the mechanics of the game. As far as, if you're the pooler, you have to worry about pathing. You have to know what pathing is first. And pathing is basically the path that the creatures will take to get from where they are to get to where you're at. And you would think, because if you played modern games, you would think that it would just be as simple as whatever the shortest path to you, or the safest path to you, is what they take. Well, in the early days, I don't know what kind of the programs they use now, but in the early days they had to set basically the highways at which the mobs will move, and sometimes those paths overlapped each other and interfered with each other, and the coding and all this other stuff played a role to where the mob would be really weird in some situations, where he would run all the way close to you, and when he gets about an inch away from you, if you're standing in the right spot, he would all of a sudden run back. Like that road dead-ended, you know, 2 inches in front of you. And because it dead-ended, he had to go all the way back the road he came, take a left, go all the way around the corner to, you know, go 4 stories down, another story up, come back the back entrance, and come to you from behind, meanwhile dragging like 50 creatures along with them. You know, the pathing in some of these zones were so broken that it was really dangerous to pull more than just a few feet. So you had to know what that was, you had to know what the pathing was in certain areas, and it really just came down to experience. 9 to 10, how many would take? 5 mine and find out. it would really just come down to you'd have to do it. You'd just have to go in there and find it out for yourself. So not a lot of people had that kind of knowledge because it was hard earned. I mean, if you weren't a very good pooler, people knew it, and if you were a really good pooler, people knew that as well, and you were very sought after, and people were like, I want that guy, especially if you're going to a hard zone. But it was very easy to make mistakes and wipe an entire group. I mean, you walk into a room and say there's 4 guys in there, and it looks easy, you know, they're spread out. You're like, okay, I can just pull one. And you go in there, and all of a sudden, not only do you get all 4, but the room above you gets pulled as well. And you're like, how did that happen? How did the room above aggro in some way? And it's always some little quirky thing, like the creature, one of those 4 creatures in that room cast a spell, and that spell, for whatever reason, aggroed the guys above you. And knowing that means that's the guy. You had to remember which one it was out of those 4, and you had to like stun him, or you had to do something to stop him from casting that spell, and then he'd run after you, and you'd be fine. So, little quirks of every zone that you had to basically just learn. But it made it interesting, rather than sitting here not doing anything. And the reason I kind of like sitting here is because this gave me plenty of opportunity to talk to the people I'm in a group with, to get to know them. There's a wall group now, so I can't pull that anymore. Oh, that sucks. I'm trying to keep up with what's going on at the same time I talk to you guys. But it allowed me to talk to the group, get to know them, make friends, plan out what we're going to do next, just really have the time. Because as a pooler, as I said, you are pooling 24/7. Like, if you're a good pooler, you don't ever sit down. Like, if you looked at this monk, you've never seen him stop. Not once. Now, he doesn't really have power, so that's another reason he's not sitting down. But even as a Shadow Knight or a Paladin, chances are you will not stop. You'll just keep pooling the whole time. Unless you're really, really talented, you're not really going to be able to type very much doing that. I can put on my auto run and maybe type out a few words before I get to the end of the wall, and then I have to move around again, stuff like that, but it's incredibly difficult, and I can't have prolonged conversations that way. So if you want a class where you can actually get to know the people you're with, or actually just get to talk to them, that's the way to go, because back in the day, they didn't have in-game mics and stuff like that where you could actually communicate with your voice. If they did, I would have loved that. That would have been amazing, because when I first started this game, I was one of those one-finger tapper keyboard guys, and when I wanted to spell something out, I was using just one finger at a time. Okay, where's the key? I don't know where it is on here. Why can't I ever find the J key? You know, whatever. It was ridiculous how bad of a typist I was. So actually playing Everquest got me really efficient at typing. I could do over 120 words a minute now, and that's simply because of Everquest. I never took a class. I never studied it. I didn't read any books about it. Just playing the game, that constant heightened sense of, the group is about to die. I need to type out what I need to type out as fast as possible. Saying, oh, there's another ad, or somebody mezzed this thing, or I need a heal, or something very important to the situation. And that is basically what taught me typing, so I'm grateful for that. But if it had been a microphone out there that I could talk to these other players with, I probably never would have learned that. So that's kind of a downside, but at the same time, it would have been so much easier. I mean, just so much easier. And probably pretty enjoyable, because I would have got to hear and talk to some of these people that are from other countries. I mean, it would have been interesting to hear their accents if they had any. Let me tell them I have no power left. I think they just killed the trainer. Give it a second. And he's heading right for me. He got him. Give it a second before you sit down. If they're heading right for you, chances are that's because you stole aggro. Now, how much you stole aggro is a completely another story. It's very hard to judge that. Depending on how he pulled them. If he pulled them with a ranged weapon, then he did some damage. And me healing him may not steal that much aggro. Now, if he body pulled him and I heal him, that's another story. You're going to have aggro until he taunts it off of you, probably a couple times at least. So you definitely want to watch that. You don't want to heal too soon. You also don't want to heal too late, so it's a very fine line you have to walk. Just like with any other class, you gotta learn when not to do things, and when you just unfortunately have to take the bullet and do it anyways. That doesn't really happen too terribly often if you're just conscious and aware of your tanks or your pullers' habits. Some tanks, as I said before, will never stop moving. You kind of have to on occasion if your cleric or your healer is completely out of power. If he's completely out of power, for me, I'd sit down. That's it. Even if I don't need the power, I'll sit down, just to let him know I'm not going anywhere until he has at least some power, because there's nothing worse than, in later levels, working your way down to a room that took you probably about 40 minutes to get there, after who knows how long it took you to put the group that you want with all the classes that you have together, to get down there, and then be in a rush to get just an extra couple of pulls in for a little bit more experience, and push it and wipe the group. Because that means an incredibly long course retrieval time, if at all possible, because you got to remember you're going down there with no equipment on whatsoever, and you all have to meet back up. Sometimes people don't bind themselves very close by, either because they forgot or they didn't think that they'd be there that often, or it was just like a spur-of-the-moment thing and they got pulled into it. For whatever the reason is, you'll find that sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 people who are bound literally like 15, 16 zones away, and now, you know, you're sitting there waiting for an hour, hour and a half for them to get back, and for, you know, hopefully for you guys to be able to fight your way back down again for another 40 minutes. Probably going to take you twice as long because you have no equipment on, just to get back to your corpse. So think about it, you know, 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes of sitting down letting your healer med versus, what, 3 hours of horrible corpse retrieval time. Not really that bad of a deal. Just wait it out if you have to. You know, it's one of the key things. If your healer or your meser does not have power, you definitely want to wait, especially if it's not broken. If the zone or the area you're in has possible adds that you know your group is going to have trouble with, maybe because you don't have enough people or the right classes, or the people you have just aren't decked out enough with the right equipment. There's a number of reasons why your group may not be able to handle things as well as other groups. You definitely just take a breath, just take a minute, cool down, you know. I mean, yeah, as I said before, you do want to pull 24/7, but that's only if your group can handle it. If you do more than your group can handle, you're going to end up losing more experience than you gain. You're going to be labeled as a bad puller, not because you can't pull, but because you don't know when to stop. So, you know, knowing when to pull and when not to pull is almost as important as knowing how to pull. Or probably equal. I probably should say it's equal, because, you know, maybe, okay, I don't know. I guess that's not equal, because I would say 90% of the groups that I'm in never really required me to stop pulling. That's only the occasional really, really bad pull, and this usually because it's my fault. You know, instead of pulling 1 or 2, I pulled like 4 or 5. I mean, it was ridiculous how bad some of these pulls were, that the group was able to save my butt and redeem me by not dying, because I made some huge mistake and I pulled so many, and then I had the I don't know if you call it stupidity or just the overlooking part of, why didn't I fatigue death? You know, as a Shadow Knight, why didn't I just fatigue death, or why didn't I just take the hit and die rather than bring all that back to the group? You know, sometimes when you pull, you get all these guys on you, and your first reaction is, oh crap, right? I'm gonna die, and then you're running back to the group, and you don't even realize what you're doing. You're like, why are you gonna do that? Just stop. Fatigue death. Don't bring that back. You know it's gonna be problems, but you do it anyways. And then when you get back, you just feel like the biggest idiot. You're like, especially if somebody else dies because of it. You know, you brought it back, and they die, which actually happens quite a bit, because, you know, the healer knows that if you die, especially if you're the only tank, if you die, then the group's gonna die. It's the same thing as if the healer dies, then the group's gonna die, because you can't survive without a tank. Everybody else takes hits, you know, incredibly hard, and their life will go down just so quickly. It's crazy. At later levels, I usually have 3 heal spells up: a small, medium, and a large. Large is usually like a complete heal, and that will be for the tanks. The small will be for the casters, and then the medium one is usually a faster spell that does a decent amount of health, and I'll use that on the tanks in a pinch. If he's taking damage too quickly for my complete heal to go off, which is 10 seconds long on the casting time, so that definitely takes a little skill getting used to just when to cast that and how to cast it. Every tank is different on that, so you just have to see how he's taking the damage, because some tanks will take physical damage not very much at all, whereas the magic, you know, they just get the floor wiped with them. And so you got to keep track of, you know, who's attacking them and all this stuff when it comes to that. But with the medium heal, I'll cast it on my tank, maybe a bubble of his life, maybe a bubble and a half if I'm lucky. Whereas if I cast that medium heal on a caster, it'd probably do, I don't know, you know, 150, 160% of his life. It'd be a waste, because unless he's dead and a half, I mean, I'm not going to get my full health out of that, out of the mana that I'm using. So I'll use like a smaller here, like this one. I'm healing a wizard, and you saw right there, it did a pretty decent amount, but that's because she has a lot of buffs on right now. Otherwise, that would have been just overkill. And we've all gotten buffs. I think now they're finally wearing off. Skin Like Nature still has a little bit though. But yeah, so you want the small buffs for the casters, and of course you have to know who they are. So at later levels, when I joined a group, usually not just me, a lot of people would ask. They'd be class check when they first join. The first thing that comes out of their mouth, other than hi or thanks for the invite, is like class check, and they're just trying to figure out what class everybody is. Now they could do that themselves by doing a who all and then typing everybody's name, but that takes quite a long time, and it's just a lot easier to ask people to identify themselves. You kind of pick out who's what class, as in, you know, this game does have really, really good armor for certain classes, and they tend to wear that armor. And it wasn't until later that they came out with the ability to change the color through dyes and things of that sort, that really allowed you to look different. So at later levels, you'll see all the enchanters look really similar. They may have different items in their hands, but most of them will be wearing the same robe, or the same 2 or 3 robes, depending on how well equipped they are. I mean, there's always that top of the line one that everybody's drooling over, and then there's like the medium one that almost everybody has, and then there's like the cheapy one that if you don't have a lot of money and you don't play as much as most people, you don't camp a lot of names, that's the one you're probably be running around with. But you can tell pretty much just by looking at people at later level what class they are. But you can't always, and you can't rely on that 100%. So you'll just ask, and they'll let you know, I'm a necro, I'm a cleric, I'm a rogue, and then you'll put the names together with what class they are, and then you'll know from then on how to heal those people. Again, as I said before, with the tank, that takes a little bit of tweaking to figure that out, because I don't know if it was just me, but I noticed that paladins actually seem to tank a whole lot better than shadow knights. I mean, they seem to take the hits better as far as that went. They obviously couldn't pull as well because they didn't have fatigue death, but they were pretty nice to have around because they took the hits a little bit less, and they, in a pinch, they were made halfway decent healers. I mean, the heal spells they get are pretty pathetic because they're not, you know, pure healer, obviously, but that lay of hands that they have definitely comes in handy occasionally on a really, really bad pools and stuff like that, and they unfortunately usually would use it on me as the healer if something really nasty started happening, which I guess it's a waste on anybody because it heals their entire life, period. But as a cleric, you really don't have that much life, so I always hated using it because I do believe it's like an 18-hour time or a 24-hour time. Don't hold me to that, but it's pretty ridiculous, whatever it was. I have to look that up again. So so bad that the timer was that I remember with my Shadow Knight I had Death Touch, which is basically the reverse is, you know, lay of hands. And instead of healing somebody, you could do a great deal of damage to them. Where are they going? But I would always save that for emergency situations, such as I'm by myself, or maybe I'm in a group, we're fighting a creature, he's gonna kill me, I have, what, 1-2% life left, and he has, you know, 15-20%, I'm gonna die here. The healer's all out of power, nothing I can really do except, you know, accept the fate that I have. Remember, I have Death Touch, click it, hit the guy for, I don't remember exactly, I think it was more like 50%, 60% of the creature's health is on average what it did. It wasn't like the greatest damage thing, but that was a lot of damage for 60% of a creature's health. Maybe finish up 8 or 9 there, a little slow here, good luck and have fun. So we're about to lose our tank here. So again guys, we're going to go ahead and end the video here while I look for more people to fill out this group. If you like these videos, please hit the like button, subscribe. Definitely leave comments below. I'll mention you in game when you do. And I want to thank you guys for watching.